Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Please just give me 1 second to double check that everything is working on all three of my streams right now, and it looks like it is, so that is a good thing. So, today we got an interesting one today with Sailor Moon S, so one of the rules I gave myself when I was deciding on doing this tier list thing was that I'm not going to do anything to try to correct their list itself at all. Like the list, I'm just using the list that they used and not doing any alterations. And this is one of those instances where there's going to be actual problems because of it. And the reason for that is Sailor Moon S is not the original Sailor Moon. Like it's like a later season, so I have not seen any Sailor Moon, so I don't know if I'm gonna know what's even going on. So that again, that's a failing of the list itself. Although I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Because again, Sailor Moon is not something I'm super familiar with. I mean, I know of it, of course, and I know like everybody knows Sailor Moon, but like I've never seen it. So hopefully it doesn't completely mess with me. So as always, let's read the summary blurb so I know more or less what I'm getting myself into. The Sailor Guardians and their leader, Sailor Moon, continue the duty of protecting Earth from any who would dare cause it harm. However, Sailor Mars' apocalyptic visions and the appearance of two new Guardians, Sailor Neptune and Sailor Uranus, signal that a new battle will soon begin. These newcomers seek 3 talismans that are inside the pure heart crystals within human beings. Once brought together, these objects form the Holy Grail, a magical relic with extraordinary abilities. They want to use the Grail to save the world, but an evil organization known as the Death Busters seeks its power for their own desires. The removal of a talisman from a person's heart crystal will cause their death, something that Uranus and Neptune see as a necessary sacrifice to form the Grail. While Sailor Moon and her group deem it unforgivable, but can any sacrifice be worth the cost even if it saves the lives of the entire human race? Okay, so that's interesting. They're going to be... I mean, I didn't even really know much about what the tone of the show is, so it's interesting. It's going to tackle some pretty big things, some philosophical ideas. I don't know how much it's going to get into in the 3 episodes that we watch, and I'm also definitely very curious to see how well I'm going to be able to follow along, how much is going to rely on having seen the previous seasons. But yeah, who knows? Yeah, okay, so yeah, it looks like... Yeah, okay, so from the looks of this, it looks like this might be season 3? Okay, so... Yeah, okay, so it looks like Sailor Moon S is actually season 3, so... It is what it is. That's what's, that's what the list decrees, so that is what I shall do. So, let's just get it started. Okay, so yeah, it definitely seems like whatever issues... I mean, it seems like they went through a full story arc before all this. And yeah, just because they cause copyright issues, I'm going to be skipping the OPs. Okay, this is interesting. I like the art style already. I mean, I already kind of knew what to expect there because I've obviously seen, you know, the characters from Sailor Moon before. Because it's, again, even for someone who has never seen it, it's an iconic. You know, it's iconic, so everyone at least knows of it. And I guess it looks like, yeah. And also, I'm not too familiar with really much Magical Girl stuff in general either, so... I mean, I saw Gushing Over Magical Girls, but that doesn't really count. Because it's more of a parody homage than a normal example of the genre. Okay. Premonition of World's End. So yeah, I'm guessing that was just a vision. Yep.
したのレイちゃん。なんだかうなされてたよ。あ、ごめん、なんでもないの。ただちょっとおかしな夢
The
見ちゃ
audio
って。
balance might be slightly off. The music feels pretty loud compared to the
私もおかし
voiceover.
な夢見ちゃってさ。
That seems to be a consistent issue with stuff from the 80s and early 90s.
そしたらそこに
Not universal for sure, but something that's very common with a lot of the anime we've been watching.
面白くない？面白いけど、今はそんな夢を見てる時じゃないはずでしょ。うさぎちゃん、一昨日の実力テストできたのかい？まあ0点ってことはないと思うんですけど。私たち3
Okay,
年生
I
になっ
do
た
like
の。
all the elements that are going into making this, comedic
戦いで遅れ
interaction
た分
between
を
the
取り
group.
戻さないと。後悔さっきのたらこっていうものね。
ちょっと待って、うさぎちゃん、今の覚えちゃダメよ。
That being said, I do feel like they're kind of playing on a lot of the character stuff that probably happened
今度も言うか
in
な。
でもさっきのたらこの方が感じが出てるけどな。よね。
because
楽
I'm
しみ
not
にとっておいたたらこを
familiar
ア
with
ル
the
テミ
group
スが食べ
dynamics,
ちゃった
so
り
this
する
is
と
going
さ、
to be,
さっき食べとけ
a little alien to me.
待つなの。
So like I don't know anything about any of these characters so far, aside from Saji, just because of
こうするの。
the brief characterization they had of her doing the exam, but and that's the thing, I can't really blame the show for that because it's just a product of the list thrusting onto me a series that was kind of in the middle of its run when I so again, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to handle this when I make the final video, but I'll do my best. I love the use of colors so far. Interesting, and a lot of contrast between light and dark. I mean, it's very overt what they're doing, but it works.
ついに大門の卵は完成した。大門は純粋な心を持つ人間を選び
And I
出し、
actually like the
その
comic
心を
book
奪い
style
取る。
shading they're using
純
for this
粋な
guy.
心。
そう、この世を思いのまま
That's
に
a
支
cool
配
visual.
できるという聖杯。それは3つのタリスマンが揃う時に現れる。その3つのタリスマンは選ばれた人間の純粋な、すなわちピュアな心の結晶なのだ。
つまり、その選ばれた人間を見つけ出し、タリス
Oh, hey,
マンを手
Alan.
に入れ
Glad you
れ
can
ば。
make it.
聖杯を世界を手に入れることができるのだ。
This is probably going to be an interesting experience because, the list says Sailor Moon S. I have not seen anything Sailor Moon yet, so I'm kind of plopping in right in the middle of the story, so I don't know how well I'm going to follow. Oh, you finished Old Dragon's Tale. It was good, wasn't it? I mean, I will say I don't think the translation's quite as good as the main series, but it's still pretty good. I missed. Sorry, I was distracted. I missed that. I beg you, please study a little bit more. Okay, that's funny.
こりゃ参った。いくらなんでもこの点はまずいよね。パ
Interesting
パや
music
ママが見
choice.
たらなんて言うか。それよりレイちゃんに見られたら。
Yeah, I felt kind of the same way when I read it, Alan. I mean, it's kind of an expansion on what the world was long before anything really happened, but yeah, exactly. A lot of my original questions. The one thing I'm always curious about is how much of what they talked about the origin of the world was actually like real and how much of it was essentially Laplace reciting legend, because I could see it kind of going either way because it was kind of meant to be a little bit cryptic and poetic, but overall I actually really liked the idea that the world itself could be expanded beyond just Rudy's part in it. Yeah, the creator god. Yeah, I mean, yeah, again, it's one of those things where even Laplace was saying, that's just kind of what I've been told. I don't know for sure, but yeah, okay. I don't want to get too much into a Mushoku Tensei tangent. I'm already at a bit of a disadvantage with Sailor Moon just because I'm watching Sailor Moon S without having seen anything else Sailor Moon before. So I should at least be paying attention to it, which, I mean, I always do, but
のよね、レイちゃんって人は。
today especially.
うさぎ。 さぎったらボケと突っ立ってるんだから。
Okay.
姉ちゃんの方こそボケボケボケ作だったじゃないのよ。
Oh, look at that. So this is like the second anime in the on the list that we've seen so far that you haven't seen. Out of what, like 30 we've seen already? So that's kind of wild. And yeah, I know how influential it is. It's one of those things where even before I became a weeb, I would have recognized at least Sailor Moon, and maybe not the other characters, but Sailor Moon at least I would have recognized because of just how much that imagery has pervaded throughout all forms of culture, essentially. But yeah, so far it feels like it is kind of building off some character stuff. At least when the characters are all interacting with one another, it feels like it's building on existing development. Like the group dynamic has already been established because they already had like a full story arc before this. So again, I'm hoping I'll be able to kind of follow along with what it's and pick up what it's putting down. This actually might need but if I can't, if it's something that does actually really require watching the prior parts of the show, I might also have to be. It might be my second thing on the list that doesn't get an actual tier because I don't. Because again, if it requires previous watching to really pick it up, it wouldn't be fair for me to actually give it a real review, or at least a real ranking.
まあそんな点だったんじゃめげて当然かもね。悪かったわね。
Okay, I like the
で
little
もウサギは勉強以外にいい
visual
とこがいっぱいあるから
indicators.
気にしない方がいい
They're
わよ。
not so much visual gags, but
あら、いつものレイちゃんらしくない。そうねえ、ウサギの将来の夢って何？あ？夢か。私はごちゃごちゃしてわかんないな。レイちゃんは？私は
okay.
シンガーソング
So
ラ
I
イ
will
タ
say I
ー
do
に
like kind
モ
of what
デルに
they're
素敵な声優
doing
さんに
here. Even though I still
それ
have
から
not really gotten a solid grasp on how any of these characters are and how they interact with one another, I actually do
それから
really like the kind of contrast she's doing with how
愛する人の
anxious she is about the vision while trying to kind of
言ってるって。
while also kind of trying to
い
hide
つか
it.
守さんと結婚するのよね。いやー、恥ずかしい恥ずかしい恥ずかしい。
Voice
あんな
acting is
ひど
pretty
い点
good.
じゃ守さんの方が恥ずかしいわよ。まあ勉強が全てじゃないけど将来のためウサギや守さんのためにももうちょっと頑張んなさいよ。じゃまた後で。元気出してウサギ。それだけが取り柄なんだから。もうでも口は悪いけど心では純粋に
Okay, I
私
mean,
はみんな
I
のこ
probably
と
could
を
have
心
picked that
配し
up
てくれ
without
てんだ
having
よ
that
ね。
being
あ
explicitly
りがと
stated,
う、レイちゃん。
but it is a decent way of showcasing that she at least sees through her exterior. Okay, I like that actually. That looks pretty neat. I am actually like it. The visual effects are fairly simple, but I actually do really like what they're going for. Ooh, okay, that is just cool visuals. I
レイ
like
ちゃんの
that.
言う通りよね。ああ。こんなテストの点をマモちゃんが見たら。
ひどいなこりゃ。
って言うだろうな。
Yeah, it's one of those anime that I've been meaning to watch for a while, and I am a little disappointed that I have to actually start with S. I mean, I'm not gonna go through the entirety of S. Even if I do kind of go back and watch it, I'm gonna start from the beginning. But yeah, I know almost nothing about it, but I know that also, it's a shoujo anime, but also does have a decent male following as well, and not just for horny reasons.
いやいや天気で。
うさこ。
いやだからここしばらくはみんな
Honestly,
で
all the
ね。
elements that go into her character, just between the animation, the little visual gags, and the voice acting, all actually meld really well as far as the comedic elements go. I don't know how well it'll translate into more serious moments, for me at least. But again, just to make the comedic parts of a character, actually, it all really combines extraordinarily well. Like, so far, whenever we've looked at anything like comedic, whether it's an actual comedy show or just a comedic element of a more serious show, I've noticed that usually there's one element that kind of defines the comedic nature of it, but this seems to be just a really solid blend of comedic elements. Nothing like stands out to me on its own, but altogether, like, the complete picture is actually pretty good, at least with her specifically.
ちゃん家に集まって
So that's actually pretty
お勉強しよう
impressive.
ってことになってんのよ。
そうした方がいいな。
戦いで勉強がさお外になっちゃってたからさ。
じゃあ寂しいけどデートもお預けだな。
いやまそれほどまでにしなくてもいい。
ほら頑張れよ。
Yeah, in a sense. Jack of all trades in a sense.
いや厳しか。
The Jack of all trades does have a bit of a negative connotation, or at least a connotation of mediocrity. But I mean, I think in this case, it's not that, a lot of times the comedy ends up being one part kind of excels and really highlights that element of the comedy. And that's enjoyable for its own reasons. And this also but this kind of ends up being more like the sum is greater than, no, the total is greater than the sum of its parts. And that's where I feel this is doing well so far. Granted, I am 10 minutes into episode 1, and we've only, seen a few brief scenes with any of the characters. So this is just an early impressions, but that is what I'm noticing. Yeah.
昨日の夢は一体林業と社会人列在全
Yeah, well, I mean, because also, we got to consider the fact that at the end of the day, it is the final product that actually matters. And I do think these things all come together to form a very solid final product, at least as far as Usagi's comedic elements go. So, I mean, whether it gets there through just a, consistent, strong blend of various aspects like I think this is doing here, or if it's just one element that's really fucking funny, it almost doesn't matter. It kind of, it changes a little bit of the flavor of the comedy, but again, for as far as overall enjoyment goes, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, there's a sense of that. It's like how actually, so yeah, obligatory Mushoku Tensei reference. Have to get at least one of those every stream. But I actually think a better example would be like Paul being advanced in all sword styles kind of puts him a little bit above somebody who's just saint rank in one style, because he is shown to be a little bit more valuable than somebody who again is a higher level but only in one style. So it's not a perfect analogy, but I think it works.
ダメだわ何も感じない なんでもないのかな
Yeah, okay. I am still... part of me really is feeling like a lot of this kind of builds off of whatever it was doing in previous seasons. Because, again, like, I really do kind of understand the anxiety they're trying to put this girl under. But at the same time, there's not a lot of setup on its own. And I feel like that's most likely because...
みんなが幸せに暮らせますよう
the
に
setup was probably already done by this point. Although I'm also noticing an interesting blend of religious iconography. Like there's the she's clearly a Shinto shrine maiden, but they're also the main driving thing, the MacGuffin of this season is going to be the Holy Grail. Although it's not like the Holy Grail from Judeo-Christian mythology, but it's still called the Holy Grail, which is definitely not Shinto. Oh, that's good.
肉じなんなの 仲間を気遣うお前のピュアな心をいただく。ここじゃおじいちゃんたちを巻き添えにしちゃ。
Okay, so it definitely seems to kind of go with almost like the comic booky style of conflict. Okay, I'm excited to see how the action goes, because that's another thing I don't really know much about.
あなたの今日の運勢は
Oh,
大
that's
凶です。大門無空時、この娘の中にタリスマンが宿っているかもしれない。ピュアな心を奪い取りなさい。大門。
Alright, yeah, as I always say, real life takes priority over the stream, so have a good night, Alan.
結果が出るのは時間の問題ね。タリスマンを持つ可能性のある他の人間を探しま
Okay,
し
I
ょう。
was thinking we were gonna see a fight scene here. I mean, we still might, but... Yeah, okay, that scene went... Okay, they still like building up to a fight scene, but I do want to see the action.
こらウサギ、みんなと約束したんでしょ、お勉強するって。だって
Okay, so I guess the cat talks. Okay, that's news to me.
まったくルナは乙女心を理解してないの
Hey,
ね。
Connor plays. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words.
レイちゃんの声だ。何かしら。
Okay, so I think they were kind of building up to something more action-oriented, so... Yeah. Okay, so yeah, there's the magical girl transformation sequence. You kind of have to assume that's going to be a part of things. Okay, I know these things are kind of iconic. I never really... I mean, I get the idea, where it is kind of building on the tropes of, like, the mecha transformation scenes and the superhero suiting up scenes that we've seen in previous anime. And then, you know, Magical Girl was kind of just taking from that, so... Okay.
セーラームーン。
純粋な心を持ったお友達をいじめるなんて許せない。好きに変わって。
Okay, I definitely see the appeal of this kind of
ピュアな
thing.
心こそ
Like,
こちらの
I
狙
can
いさ。
feel the energy that's happening in this scene.
あなたの運勢
Like, I don't have any, like, real connection to it,
大凶
but I can appreciate... I appreciate why this really resonates with people.
なんだあの化け物は。ヨウマ。変身して戦いましょう。
あなたたちの運勢は
Oh, okay.
今日です。
強い。
今までの敵とは段違いよ。
目障りなこの邪魔
Okay,
者
so
を
they're starting
どう始末
everything
して
off
くれよ。
on a, on, like, an underdog level where, you know, the enemy is able to just kind of fuck their shit up.
春爛漫。心地よい日差しの中で騒動の嵐
Oh
を
shit,
巻
that's the
き
guy
起こ
from
す
the
不
memes.
届き者め。
Okay.
立ち去るがいい。
Actually, yeah, come to think of it, it was... Now that I think of it, it was a Sailor Moon
Even though Sailor Moon-
meme. Because fucking Sailor Moon was in that meme. Okay, so I'm done. I'm probably gonna get copyrighted to shit for this, so... yeah, unfortunately, that means that most likely this VOD is gonna get chopped up to hell because I'm not spending a month fighting numerous copyright claims just for an unlisted VOD. Ooh, that was bright. That kind of hurt my eyes. Okay. I'm guessing that's the source of the power. Again, I don't know much about Sailor Moon, but that's not the show's fault. Okay, interesting.
こんなことって。
うさこ、あなたの運勢は今日です。
タキシード仮面様。
Okay. I mean, I don't know if this is gonna be a representative of the rest of the show, but interesting that fight scene was very like explosive. Like it was like a few quick strikes, and then that was kind of it. That might just be to establish the power of this villain. But actually, it could be interesting to see it buck the trend of long drawn-out fight scenes with quick, punchy ones. And I think there is a place for that. Cool. I do like the design of that. I guess that's the talisman. Looks neat.
ウサギの将来の夢って何？私はシンガーソングライターにモデルに素敵な声優さん、それからやったー、愛する人の奥さんなんて言えるわけないじゃない。
I think this callback that they're doing for this emotional moment is like it's a little heavy-handed, but I think it more or less works. Although maybe it's a little bit too heavy-handed. That being said, this show does seem to kind of be a little bit over the top in everything it does, so that might just be in keeping with its stylistic choices. Okay. Yeah, I do pretty consistently like the visuals they're doing. Especially anything that kind of goes for the magical elements. It's like it looks nice. Like the animation itself, the effects they're doing aren't particularly impressive or have a whole lot of spectacle to them. Well, they do have spectacle, but not like technical spectacle. But just the way they're all designed, the use of color and lighting, underlighting specifically, looks nice.
無駄骨か。
Okay, and that's interesting. It looks like that I might be reading into this one little moment a bit too much, and because it very well could have just been a way to have this scene play out the way it did without actually killing off a character. But I'm thinking this might kind of indicate that the villains are not like actually like just crazy malicious evil, but more of a cold, dispassionate evil, where it's like it's not that they want to cause suffering, it's that they don't care if they cause suffering in the way of their goal. I don't know. Again, I could be reading a little bit too much into it, but that's the impression I'm getting so far. Okay, so that's also an interesting way to get things started. Again, I don't know exactly what happened in previous seasons, but it does also appear that they're starting from a position of, what relative weakness, where, despite whatever strength they've gotten in whatever development as far as their combat abilities that they've had in the past is going to be kind of irrelevant in the face of this particular enemy. Or at least the enemies that the villains can summon, because it looks like the woman that kicked their asses has been destroyed, but also it could be, yeah, probably destroyed based on what was shown.
カオリナイト君、標的はタリスマンの持ち主ではなかったようだね。
はい、それに思わぬ邪魔者が。以後注意します。
新たな敵はピュアな心を持つ人を狙っているみたいね。
I do
その中にタリスマン
personally
があるとかって言
still
ってた
kind
わ
of
ね。
hold to I generally believe that previous seasons are probably required to fully grasp what this is
新
doing.
しい戦いが始
Because
ま
like I feel like there's a lot of stuff that it's trying to do that I just lack proper context to fully comprehend. But granted, it's again just the first episode. First episodes do tend to kind of have a lot of responsibility, like they have a lot they need to do in a relatively short amount of time. So the kind of messiness that I'm experiencing, which is not the right word, but like the kind of just the interesting the way things haven't quite come together yet. That's pretty common in pretty much everything we've seen so far. So yeah, I'll still give it a chance, but I'm still feeling like it's probably a case of me needing to have seen the previous seasons to really understand what's going on, at least on a deeper level. The baseline story is pretty easy, but
はい、教授。
我らデスバスターズの目的は何か。
I like how they keep changing up the backgrounds to amplify these particular scenes. Like, does it make a whole lot of sense for it to look like this? No, but it's pretty cool.
選ばれし人間のピュアな心の中にあるタリスマンを3つ探し出せば聖杯のありかがわかるはずですわ。
Okay, okay, I will say another thing again. I know I harp on about this kind of thing all the time, and you know, I'm gonna keep doing that just because it's a personal pet peeve of mine, but the idea of people just kind of saying things for the benefit of the audience when it makes no fucking sense for them to say it in universe just bugs me, because like there are ways to deliver exposition to the audience. Even if you want to do it like explicitly, you can just have a narrator do it. But for her to say, oh yes, once we get these 3 talismans, we'll be able to locate the Holy Grail. It's like, he already knows that. Like, why are you saying it again? So, but again, that's just a pet peeve of mine.
そのためにはまず大門音の卵。
I do like the music that is accompanying these lab experiments. It really does sell the villainous tone of what they're doing. And okay, and actually, even the same like animation sequence actually has a completely different, not a completely different, but it takes on new layers now that we actually know what that thing he's creating is, so we can assume that it's another villain or another enemy for the girls to fight. So again, it's like almost a little bit more sinister now that we kind of know what this is. Despite it being the exact same or a very, very similar type of animation sequence. And of course, you can logically assume that it's going to spawn another enemy who is also going to be absurdly powerful, or at least more powerful than these girls can handle. Okay. So that's interesting. Is she actually dealing with trauma? Okay. Okay, yeah, it actually does look like she's dealing with some residual trauma from her experience. I like that. I like it when stories have actual consequences to the things that happen. Okay. and cutting off the serious moment with humor. You know, it's a good way to move from to not get trapped in the negative emotions of
う
that
さぎ
scene.
ちゃったな。夢じゃないのね。光が戻らなければもう変身できないかも。うさぎちゃん。
Okay, so it's not just a
私
residual
セーラ
trauma.
ー選手を
Actually, okay, so now it looks like it might not actually be a residual trauma, which I think is a little bit of a shame because I think that's a good way of kind of doing a lot of character stuff. But it looks like whatever that thing did might have damaged the magical girl gem, whatever it's called. Again, not familiar with Sailor Moon, so I'm just kind of playing it by ear, but okay, so it looks like it's more of like an immediate issue, an immediate threat, as opposed to, kind of a lasting scar on her, which, that is a bit of a shame, but, it can work as well.
引退するのかな。そんなことないわよ。でも金髄賞が大丈夫よ。きっとなんとかなるって。元気出してうさぎちゃん。そうだ。
Okay. But I will say, I do actually like that they're showing this,
でも
this character that has been established to be very cheerful in general, both explicitly and implicitly, and how they, negative
そんな
emotions are
夢を見
very
たのか。
transient.
マモちゃん。
Actually
これ
seeing
から
her
私どうなっちゃうんだ
have
ろう。
actual, real, persistent
変
negative
身できないと
emotions,
新
makes
しい
it hit a
敵
little
にも
harder.
立ち向かえないよね。
そうだ。うさこにいいもの見せてやるよ。
Wait, so does he just have a shirt that says Earth on it?
そうだ。
Yeah, he does. Okay. Honestly, it might just be a case of in Japan, they'll just have English on their clothing and not know what it means, kind of like how a lot of people will have Japanese on their clothing in America and not know what it means. But it's like it always seems to be some just random ass word that's on these anime character shirts. But then again, I've never been to Japan, so I can't say if that's actually representative of things that actually happen. I don't know. It's just an interesting observation. Yeah,
う
I
さ
don't
こ
know.
にいいもの見せてやるよ。いいから来いよ。
Yeah, I've noticed that the music likes to often kind of start before the scene, like since to serve as like a lead up into the scene to set the tone before the scene actually starts. It's an interesting
い
stylistic
い
choice.
のこんなとこに入っちゃって。
よくはないだろうけど。
はあ、誰もいないのね。やったー。マモちゃんったら二人っきりになりたいからってこんなところに連れてこなくてもいいのに。
勘違いするな。
いいから恥ずかしがらないでいいですよ。ほら。
Okay. I mean, that is pretty funny.
あら、かわい
Little
い。
lady gooner.
私に抱かせて。いいかね。茶色だから。あなたの名前はチャーちゃんだよ。よしよし。マモちゃん、この子猫を見せたかったのね。
ああ、ここは野良猫たちの住処なんだ。
Okay.
へえ。あ、どこ行くの、チャーちゃん。早く、マモちゃんも。
おい。もう。
Okay, and again, I do still think that they're kind of building on a lot of character stuff that happened in previous seasons that I am not privy to, which, again, that's a failure of the list overall, not a failure of the show itself, but I will say from the little that I do have actual, as far as context, that, just what the show is showing so far, honestly, it's establishing the baselines for these various characters pretty well overall. Again, it feels a little bit shallow from my perspective because I don't have the full context. But again, like the idea that she's able to kind of cheer up from, a pretty serious negative event and a pretty serious persistent issue that is, fucking with her. And just, seeing the cat is able to kind of cheer her up almost immediately, and the fact that this guy also knew that would cheer her up pretty much immediately. It does actually do a lot to establish their individual character traits and also their general dynamic, because he did seem kind of standoffish a little bit earlier, but again, that probably doesn't hit the same to people who actually are familiar with this character. So, again, I'm still probably at a place where I'm probably not going to be able to give this thing a fair ranking overall. But, you know, I can at least... I mean, I'll still give it like a review, even if I don't give it a final ranking, due to the lack of context that I have personally. But again, I'll attribute that as a failure of the list, not a failure of the show.
たくさん食べるのよ
But there are some interesting things it's doing, even from the perspective of
ほら、
somebody
慌てない
starting
で
from this
ま
point.
だまだいっぱいあるからねあなたがその猫ちゃんたちを育ててるの誰正義の味方へへ
よろしくにゃにゃ
Okay, that's adorable.
私も仲間に入れていつも餌をあげてるのでもみんなかわいそうなの
Yeah, those
やっと
cats
見
are
つけた
far
こ
too
こも
well
もう
behaved.
すぐ取り壊しになっちゃうのみんな幸せになりたいのに優しいんだねよし
Okay, so I'm already kind of guessing that this girl, not this girl, but the cat girl is going to be the next target of the evil people. So, I mean, they are setting it up pretty overtly. How they're like, oh yeah, we're looking for people with a pure heart. Don't you hurt my friend with a pure heart. And then there's this girl who just wants the cats to be happy. Like, yeah, okay, she's gonna be the next target.
私も猫ちゃんたちの世話をするいいわよねマモちゃん
I will say, so far,
元
this
気になれ
show,
るんならいいか
again, I can't say for sure because of the lack of context that I have, but it seems to not leave a whole lot underneath. No, that's not the right way to put it. Doesn't seem to leave a lot up to the viewer's interpretation. Like, it's pretty on the nose with everything it does. It wants you to know with 100% certainty everything it's trying to convey. And I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing just yet, or if it's neutral. I don't know. But okay.
猫の世話世話だけじゃないのよ猫の飼い主も見つけてあげないとレイちゃん、アミちゃん、ミナコちゃん、マコちゃん、みんな一匹ずつもらってくれるから
Yeah, and I will say also, I do think it's a bit of a difficult thing to start a show this, like, again, kind of right in the middle when it has an ensemble cast like this, because I know absolutely fuck all about this girl, or this girl. And I imagine these kind of interactions would hit a lot harder, or they would at least make a lot more sense if I did have that context of the previous seasons, because I would have actually presumably seen them, you know, since that point. So, again, I know I'm talking a lot about the difficulties I'm personally having just as a result of the list kind of thrusting me into the middle of this series rather than at the beginning, but again, that's a failure of the list, and I kind of have to work with what I've got. And I know I'm talking about it a lot, but it is just kind of a pervasive thing coloring my entire experience with this show so far. And it's, you know, it's something I really can't avoid, and it's, again, probably going to fuck with the overall ranking just because I don't know that I'm actually going to be able to fairly evaluate this without the proper context, because it was not meant to be watched as your first experience with the show.
これで4匹予約済みだ
ちょっと待って私アルテミスの世話だけで精一杯なんだから
どういう意味だ
気にしない気にしないう
ちだってそりゃねえ鳥がたくさんいるもの猫は無理無理
Actually, that's a good point.
一
Cats,
人暮らしだもん
outdoor cats do
猫を
kind
飼う
of
の
fuck
は
up
無理だ
local
よ
wildlife.
私も大事な受験を控えていることだし猫を飼うような精神的なゆとりはないわ何よみんな自分のことばっかり考えて
I also do have to say, it's not relevant a whole lot to the actual story they're going for, because I get the idea that they're all kind of coming up with their own legitimate reasons they can't take care of a cat, which is going to cause some conflict, like low stakes conflict. But also, you know, it doesn't matter if you're busy with school. It is not that difficult to take care of a cat. As those of you who are regular viewers of the stream will know, I happen to have a cat. And she, while she is absolutely a pain in the ass sometimes, taking care of her basic needs is actually just really easy. You just make sure they have food and water and some, get some stuff for them to be able to play with, a scratching post and all that stuff, and a litter box, and just make sure that keep that clean. Honestly, the maintenance of a cat is really not that hard. Granted, they do get into trouble sometimes, but yeah, I don't know. I don't quite buy the entrance exams excuse.
だったらウサギのところで飼えば
I love the facial expressions. They're great. It's very charming. Honestly, this might be a show that I might have to end up. So, I will say, after the marathon is done and after I make my video, there's going to be a bunch of shows that I'm going to want to go back to, which is going to be kind of rough just because I'm just expanding my backlog a ridiculous amount by watching this, but there's so many that I actually really do want to catch up with. But this is one that's possibly going to go on the list. A lot of what I'm seeing is very charming, and I feel like I do really want that context from the beginning of the show, because I feel like I am missing out on so much. It's actually kind of like when years ago, I ended up playing the beginning of Sengoku Rants, which is, the game series. I review the Rants games on my channel. It's a whole thing, but I remember playing Sengoku Rants and kind of immediately realizing, oh shit, there's a lot here that I'm not picking up on. I can tell that there's a lot of stuff that went into these overall character dynamics. Like, a lot of this humor is not quite landing with me just because I don't understand this character, that character being Rance and also Syl. So I was like, I ended up closing it down because I'm like, I have to start this series from the beginning to actually kind of pick up what it's putting down. And that actually has held up. Like, I do actually appreciate the later Rant stuff a lot more having played the earlier games. So I'm feeling like the same kind of feeling I had then with Sailor Moon here, just because I have not seen the early parts of the show and I don't actually know what all these characters are, essentially. So like, as much as I am complaining about my personal experience with this, I am also acknowledging that there's probably a lot of strengths that I'm just not able to pick up on due to my lack of having seen the earlier parts of the show. And that is something I will likely endeavor to change at some point in the future. I don't know when it's going to happen, just because there's so much on my backlog already, and I'm just adding more and more with this marathon. But yeah, again, my complaints are not directed at the show itself, just at honestly more at the TheAnimeMen's list than anything else. The list of anime they decided to watch, which again, I think it's ChatGPT generated, but yeah, allow me to just complain.
まあとにかく焦らないで飼ってくれそうな人を探したらよろしい。ではとりあえず各自猫ちゃん用の食料を調達してまた集合ね。分かったわね。
どうなってるの？
なーにいつもの気まぐれよ。
Okay, and again, just like always, I find it always very funny when animal characters have human voice actors. Because, like, you can clearly tell that's just, like, a person making a meow sound. Okay. And honestly, that was a good way of getting the what we now know as a possessed puzzle, to get that act to actually be the focus of this character. A way to do that quickly is to have the cat jump on it and fuck it up. So yeah, honestly, pretty effective way to transition into what I assume is going to be a more serious part of the show. Of course, they're going to attack this girl. Yeah, seizure warning, I guess.
嘘でしょ。
お前のピュアな心の中にあるタリスマンをいただくんでる。逃げるのよ。逃がさないねるねる。
Actually, it's very interesting hearing the sound design of the villain having the bells on her neck. That actually interesting how every time she does some sort of movement or lashes out, the bells jingle. It provides a really interesting effect. Oh, that's kind of neat. I like that. I do like how each of the enemies that we are getting so far seem to take on elements of the thing that they possess. Like, it kind of allows this to kind of have a bit of a monster of the week type of experience, while also keeping it all connected and actually contributing to an overall main story with a persistent antagonist. So that's actually pretty, that's a neat way of doing things. Yeah, again, those bells actually do a lot. Like, I love how you could hear the bells coming. Yeah, no need to watch that transition, but yeah, I like how the bells kind of rang before the woman showed up a second time, so.
よしよし、じゃあ
Yeah, that was a cool effect.
おじいちゃんに頼んで1匹ぐらい買おうかな。1匹と言わずにドドーンとまとめて買ってよ。
うさぎちゃん、スーパーのバーゲンセールじゃないんだよ。
ごめん。
Oh, that's interesting how that in Japanese is actually literally just super bargain sale. Huh. I mean, I know Japanese has a ton of loan words, but like sometimes it feels kind of ridiculous. Wondering, and I get that it's really just a stylistic thing because of, you know, kind of how magical girl anime tend to be, and how they kind of seem to be taking a lot of beats from like comic book type villains and stories. But like, is it like a rule that the villains have to have like a dramatic entrance and be intimidating for a while? Okay, that's hilarious. Okay, I will say also, I love how so far of the two enemies we've seen so far, who we can assume are probably of comparable power, I love how it's a horde of kittens that end up doing more, are actually being more effective against these villains than the fucking magical girl squad. Like, that's just, I find that hilarious. Like, they actually distracted that woman for a little bit, which they just weren't able to do with the vine creature.
したらできるかも。メイクアップ。うさぎちゃん。
ウサギ
Okay, I guess she's no magical girl powers at the
行くわ
moment.
よ、みんな。
マジスタート。メイクアップ。スタート。
Okay. Again, the transformation sequences are not something that really resonates with me. But I also understand that this is like an iconic part of not just Sailor Moon, but magical girl stuff in general. So I'm not going to complain about it, but I will also acknowledge that it's not something that I particularly click with. Although I will also say I'm probably getting copyright struck, not copyright struck, but copyright claimed to hell because of this. So I apologize to anyone watching the VOD, but yeah, this is probably most likely gonna end up getting a lot of pieces cut out of it because, yeah, sometimes that just happens. Also, I will say these transformation sequences are like right on the border of what I'm comfortable putting on YouTube.
Nani?
Oh, I like that. That's a pretty cool. Again, the visuals are very neat. I like the way each one has its own visual identity. I like how, again, they're just kind of over-the-top spectacle, in a sense. But okay, also they're getting their asses handed to them like that.
待て
うさぎちゃん。
I still don't know what's up with those cats, but I imagine that was probably explained in the
もう邪魔
previous
者はいない
seasons.
ね。寝る寝る寝る。
And I will also say, like, it is kind of funny just how overt some of the fan service is. And I'm not anti fan service in the slightest. I don't care about any of that. That's fine. Like, I mean, those of you who watch my videos know that I review Erge all the time. I cannot complain about stuff like fan service, but I do find it funny how just obvious they're being about it, where, you know, the stars that are on the villain's body somewhere, like the one was on her chest, so she kind of had to open her shirt a little. This one's on her thigh, so she has to raise her skirt. It's just funny because, like, I see what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're not even being subtle about it, and I find that hilarious.
Okay. これでカオリナイト様へのお土産ができたねる。
Okay. So again, there's some sort of... Okay, so that's whatever So yeah, whatever ended up fucking with the vine monster, the same thing to the cat lady. I don't know that they ever actually, like, showed what that was. Or I guess it's going to be the two new arrivals, the Neptune and Uranus that they mentioned in the summary blurb. They're probably going to be what ends up giving them a fighting chance. So, and it looks like they're also dispelling these creatures very easily. So, I don't know. That's curious.
またあの二人だ。
いかが。
Okay, so yeah, these...
タリスマンじゃない。
Yeah, the more I'm thinking about it is... Okay, so I completely misinterpreted what happened in the previous episode. Those are not actually the main villains. Those are, again, the new... I guess they're going to be kind of anti-heroes or, you know, the morally gray allies. That, again, the characters that were mentioned in the summary blurb. So they are more of a dispassionate, like, type of, not evil, but cruelty, where they are kind of an ends justify the means type of character, as opposed to the actual villains who, you know, just want to do evil for whatever nefarious reasons they have. So, and in comparison to the main cast, who are like the lawful good of the group. So, I don't know, interesting three-way dynamic going on here. So, I can definitely see them setting up some interesting plot lines in the future. So, yeah, I'm liking what they're putting down here. Again, I still think I'm probably missing out on a lot of depth due to my lack of context, but again, that's not the show's fault. That's more of the list generated by TheAnimeMen's.
まだ敵は倒してないわ。あなたたちも戦士なら一緒に戦って。
勘違いするな。我々の目的はタリスマンを得ることのみ。お前たちなどと一緒に戦えるか。
自分たちのことは自分たちで解決するのね。
Okay, so yeah, definitely a dispassionate type of morality where they don't actually care about the moral implications of what they do. But also, actually, I do actually like the how this scene differs from the overall structure of the previous episode, where, you know, now the enemy is not completely beaten, so that the previously established lifeline is no longer valid, because they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to fight with you. We did our part. And so now we see them fighting this enemy that's not only stronger than them, but they're also a person down. So yeah, I do like the little subtle little structural things they're doing here. Again, I really do like that animation of the puzzle pieces shattering. I will say, I know this show is kind of, by design, very over the top in every way, he just looks so ridiculous. And also, I will also admit that part of that is a little bit of bias just because I know of the guy from the meme. So, you know, that's probably not a great first impression. Okay, that's cool. I do love how the tail kind of braids together like that. Again, that's a cool visual. And combining that with the puzzle pieces, like honestly, that's such an interesting blend of aesthetic influences to have the thing kind of be influenced by both cats and the puzzles. Like it allows for some interesting visuals. Like I've never seen anything quite like it, which is actually pretty impressive. Like it's unique blends of two completely unrelated things tend to result in some really interesting, again, just visuals and stuff like that. So yeah, I like this.
Nani?
And I also, it has to be acknowledged, you know, this is from 1994. This is, 30 years old. So the fact that I still haven't seen anything like that, even decades later, like it just goes to show that if nothing else, this show has a lot of like really strong visual identity to it beyond just the baseline character designs. Just the interesting way the enemies are constructed, even beyond just and even though they're making this kind of a monster of the week type scenario, like that's really neat. Like the character designers really went all out in this series, and that definitely needs to be acknowledged. Okay. It's interesting that she calls him Sama.
今だウサコ、お前だけでも逃げるんだ。早く。
そんなことできないよ。
早く逃げろ。
私みんなを守りたい。
I'm curious, you know, if if they're magical girls, what does that make
みんなと
him?
一緒に戦う。
A magical boy?
ウサコ。
I don't actually know what the inverse, what the male version of a magical girl is even called. Actually, I'm gonna Google that real quick. Give me one quick second. No. Oh, it's apparently just called a magical boy. Okay. All right. That's more boring than I thought it would be. Okay. Oh, that's okay. I feel like I feel like I missed something from that Google. Okay, so they're not actually holding anything that's doing anything. So there's some sort of emotional thing they're setting up. Maybe, I don't know, the power of love and friendship or something like that. I do like this whole visual sequence, though. Like, I don't really know what exactly is going on. I have some ideas, but I don't know for sure. And again, I think a lot of it really depends on prior knowledge of these two characters and how they interact with one another, how they feel about one another. Probably affects a lot of things that I'm not privy to, but it's an impressive visual sequence.
スパイラルハートムーンロッド。
And the music works really well with the scene as well. Okay. Oh, okay. And I like how the clothing they were wearing was more like of a symbolic thing than a thing that's actually happening in the world. Because I wasn't actually sure, because I felt like it could kind of go either way. But I also do like kind of the implications of that scene and how just the way the scene was directed kind of showcases how they're in their own little world for a moment there, and not even this overpowering villain can really pierce that and threaten to distract them from one another because they clearly care about one another. So yeah, I mean, even though I don't have the full context for how this has happened, or how these characters have gotten to this point as far as, emotionally, like, I can see what it's doing, and it's actually laying it down fairly effectively. This is definitely one I'm still so annoyed that the list kind of dropped me right in the middle of this series. So I really do at some point need to go back and just watch the earlier parts of this show to really figure out what it's doing, because I can tell that a lot of what it's doing is actually very impressive, but I am also not picking up on it just because of my lack of experience with the show.
ウサギ変身するんだ。
今なら絶対できるわ。
And I still don't know what the fuck is up with those cats. Like, I'm sure that was explained in earlier parts of the show. I gotta have to kind of just talk through this sequence because I don't want to get copyright struck, or probably won't get copyright struck, but copyright claimed. And that means I'll have to cut this part out, which not the worst thing in the world, but I still don't really want to do that. Music kind of gets squat. I will say it's interesting that, I know Magical Girl transformation sequences tend to be fairly fan servicey. That's just kind of the nature of how it goes. And the other Magical Girls, at least in the Sailor Squad, were pretty fan servicey on their own. This does have some fan service to it, but it's interestingly less than the others. I wonder if there's a reason for that, or if it just happens to be how this particular sequence is going. Like, is it coincidence or is it deliberate? I can't really tell. I do like the music, though. It really does kind of, I don't know, it's interesting. Like, it fits the scene without being, like, hyper triumphant. Although, now this particular moment is more triumphant. So, I spoke a little bit too soon. Yeah, I will still say, and I get that the villain is kind of more humanoid now, but the hissing just sounds so ridiculous. And yeah, music probably gonna cause some issues in the VOD, which is why I am making sure to speak even more than I normally do. And I normally try to speak more than I would regularly do, just because that's how I want to do streams. I want to do it ethically. Okay, so that's... okay, that's funny, but... Okay, so that's interesting how her new transformation, or, it's still the same transformation, but her renewed ability to transform from her bond with the tuxedo mask guy was able to have her overpower this villain who I think the context clues kind of reasonably established that she's probably about comparable in power to the previous episode's villain, since she was able to kind of flick away all the other magical girls the same way that the Vine Monster was able to. So we can probably assume that's about the same power level, but the new renewed strength was able to overcome it. And I will say also, I think the thing I said in the previous episode seems to be holding true, that this show seems to rely more on like fast, punchy fight scenes as opposed to long, drawn out ones like you would normally expect in. And again, I know I'm probably gonna get like roasted to hell for using this particular terminology, but like superhero media in general tends to have a big focus on the hero fighting the villain and doing all these crazy flashy things. But yeah, again, I actually am liking the quick, punchy type of fight scene, because I feel like it really amplifies the impact and the high power of the setting. Where it's like, again, it's not like it's not long and drawn out. It's like a big, powerful blast from either side.
これ二人の
Okay.
よかったよかった
Okay, and that's cute.
でもこれからが大変よ。
そうだよ。猫のもらい手を探すんだろ。
もう見つかったよ。
Okay, I'll be honest. I thought this was going to be
アミち
a.
ゃんが2匹、みなこちゃんも2匹で。
I thought they were kind of setting up the cat thing to be a bit of a conflict between them, like a low stakes conflict. But it seems like all it did was kind of lead into the conflict with the enemy, while also being a bit of a joke as well.
大王国で飼ってもらえばいいんだ。どうしてそれを早く言わないのよ。ダメだこりゃ。
Okay, and I like the, capping it off with a bit of a humorous moment. It fits what the show, I think, is going for. And it definitely is interesting. So there is clearly a persistent story going on where, the events of one episode flow into the events of the next, and there's clearly building up towards something bigger. But it's also very interesting that each one is very self-contained as well, like, in a sense. Like, it's not fully self-contained in the way, like, an actual, like, real self-contained show is. But, like, they each kind of have their own thing going on, and you feel like you could kind of watch any of the shows, the episodes individually, and kind of have an experience with that without necessarily needing the prior episodes. But again, it's also serving a wider purpose to the story as a whole. So, I don't know. I'm curious. Because I think that's an interesting structure to take. But does it succeed? I feel like that could kind of go either way. Because I feel like it's something that you could very easily kind of fall into a trap. Or if you were too rigid with that particular structure, it could end up kind of hurting the longer term story. Because they feel like they kind of have to break it up into these self-contained episodes. But I don't know. Just excuse me for a second. I'm going to use the bathroom real quick. I will be right back. All right, I am back. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, I think I said quite a bit. Remember, I know, kind of always breaks up the flow of things, but, it is what it is. Let me just quickly double check, make sure audio levels are working on all 3 streams, and it does look like they are, so that is good. Let us then get right back into it.
突然私たちの前にかっこいい美少年天王はるかさんが登場。素敵な美女を引き連れてこりゃもう絵になるカップルってやつですか。そしてついに姿を現した謎の戦士たち。あなたたちが悪い子ちゃんならこのセーラームーンが月に変わってお仕置きよ。
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm quite buying the blend of like the high school drama and the more intense superhero conflict. But I think that's a big reason for that is that the high school stuff has kind of taken a major backseat, which it kind of has to, but I don't know. I feel like they're almost kind of better just going for one or the other.
みんなも頑張ってんだから。
Ooh, and beautiful boy.
それでアルテミスったら
And again, I know this is more of a shoujo anime than, but I know it does have a male following as well, so
案の定歯にキャラメルがくっついて
I'm curious as to how much this the shoujo elements are gonna actually connect with me. And granted, I will also say that not knowing a whole lot about these characters, as much as a typical viewer at this point in the series would be expected to know about the characters, also funny frame to stop at because that fucking Charlie Brown head right there, but yeah, again, I don't know how much this stuff is going to stick, and I don't know how much of my experience is going to be hampered by the fact that I don't really know these characters all that well just yet, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the shoujo elements actually kind of land for me, because as much as I do like slice of life and romance stuff and all that good stuff, shoujo is also just not meant for me, and I completely understand that. So I'm curious.
猫だからくっついたキャラメルがと
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ! Holy shit, that is quite the visual. I do like their willingness to kind of go to absurd lengths with a lot of the animation gags. It's nice. Like, honestly. Wow. Okay. Yeah. The fact that they're so over the top with all this is actually, I really appreciate the fact that they're just not afraid to be ridiculous about it.
あらウサギちゃんみんなが頑張ってると思って私も我慢してたのにこんなとこで
いや美奈子ちゃんは僕が誘ったんだよ。勉強疲れもあるだろうからたまにはどうだいって。
元木お兄さんちょっと甘すぎるんじゃないですか
And I know this is a common trope in Japanese media, but also just the level of intensity and importance they put on studying just does not resonate with me because I did not have that experience.
空が踊れってことわざもあるでしょ
やっぱり勉強した方がいいよ。
そうと決まったらこっちこっち
やっぱり勉強した方がいいんじゃないかな。
Oh, okay, that's not that bad. I was thinking they've already shown some issues with flashing lights, but
お先
okay, that's funny. Yeah, again, honestly, I think the visual gags are pretty consistently top tier. Oh, and that's neat. Okay, I like, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like realistically that would be mirrored, but again, the kind of the way they're blending the actual elements of the scene, like the stuff that's canonically happening, and kind of incorporating them into the animation gags. Yeah, I will say again, as much as I feel like my experience is being hurt by my lack of context, a lot of what it's doing is very impressive to me.
車酔いだほらしっかりしてトライアゲインよウサギちゃんそろそろレイちゃんち行かないとまずいんじゃそれどころじゃないでしょここで私たちが辞めたら一体誰が明日の F1 会を背負って立つのよ別に背負いたかない
I will say, one thing I've noticed is the racing games in particular in arcades tend to be the biggest ripoff. Okay, so yeah, this is like very shoujo coded for sure. Because like, yeah, this is something that does not. Okay, I mean it's funny for sure, but like this is not the kind of thing that I have an intrinsic connection with.
カバン持ってもらえる？
もうどんどん持たせちゃってくださいラッキーこんなかっこいい人が声かけてくるなんてそうそうないわ
Also, again, a lot of it is the fact that I don't really understand their the various character dynamics due to my lack of context, but I know that the Usagi is with that other guy, and it looks like this girl might also be with the guy at the concession stand. I'm not sure. So it's a little, I mean, I get the idea that you can find people attractive regardless of if you're in a relationship with somebody, but I don't know. Makes you question, you know, the fact that they're both really floored by this guy. And also, of course, by the fact that I am not a teenage girl, I did not find him all that stunning. I mean, he looks like kind of typical anime pretty boy, but that's just me.
どう私のハンドルさばき。
Although I gotta say that
レース始まってますよ。
分かってるよ。だからさ、彼女にハンデをあげなきゃね。
okay.
ハンデですって。
Although I will say, just based on the few little shots we saw of, oh shit, sorry, oh, fuck. Ah, gotta fix that, sorry about that. I don't know why that happened. This perfectly legal, I promise, officer site is a little finicky sometimes. But, yeah. Okay.
そんな一体何キロ出してるの？
Yeah, I gotta say, it might just be the fact that I'm a gamer and that this is familiar to me, but I mean the games in general are familiar to me. I've played racing games, I know how that works. This seems to be a really shittily balanced game. Like, it doesn't seem to actually be very well programmed or designed. Like, I don't know. Even the track itself seems pretty boring. So I get that that's probably not meant to be an actual realistic depiction of an actual racing game, but this scene is one of those ones that just doesn't logically click for me. Oh, and Sabo, One Piece, thank you for the follow. Yeah, again, none of this is making sense to me, but like, the point is not that it's actually supposed to be a realistic representation of a racing game, but it's to show that she gets thrashed by this guy, even despite having a handicap. Oh shit! Sorry, my cat is deciding she wants to be difficult.
やっぱり可愛い子はゲームのセンスもいいのかな。
そうですか？まあよくそう言われるんですけど。
お待たせはるか。
Yeah, I gotta say that side eye was pretty great. Again, a lot of the visual gags they're doing so far. Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, these are probably those same two who were in the. Okay, sorry, my cat's being difficult. She wants to. Okay, she saw a thing she wanted to play with, so. Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, these two are probably the people who've been interfering with the other enemies in the previous episodes. Just based on what I know about writing in general, that feels like what it's building up to. I mean, I don't particularly remember either of their voices, so I can't necessarily say that I would necessarily recognize it based on the voice acting, but okay. I do like the contrast of, well, not contrast, but the way they paralleled that previous entrance of the guy by having them be floored by her as well. Although I will say also, just visually, she doesn't look particularly standout, at least in terms of beauty or attractiveness or anything like that. But again, they visually sold what the emotion was, even if it's not something that the audience is necessarily going to feel on their own.
また。はい。お団子頭も今度は一緒にレースしような。はい。
God driving.
随分仲良くなったのね。
なんだよ。焼いてんの。
そうかも。
あの子たちまだ子供って感じで可愛いんだ。
二人とも綺麗だね。
はるかって言うんだ。あの男の人。
そういえば。
Yeah, I will say I do think that these characters, they're generally speaking, the comedic voice acting is pretty solid. I mean, the serious stuff is not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I will say the comedy elements, especially of Usagi's voice acting, does seem to kind of stand out compared to the more serious moments.
最近この辺でよく見かけるな。
元木さんいたんですか？
あ、一応ここでバイトやってるし。
感じるわ。また海が荒れようとしてる。やっぱりこの町は要注意ね。
そうだな。
Yeah, so yeah, the more I'm seeing these scenes, the more I'm definitely thinking those two are the ones who've been interfering. So, I mean, they were pretty strongly indicating that beforehand, but now it's like all but certain.
みなこちゃん、
So I'm
人
guessing that they
恋人同
don't,
士なんじゃ。
they weren't exactly trying to hide it.
あの人なのよ、私が探していた理想の男性は。
ちょっとみな
Dude, that fucking little that fucking whisper scream. Holy shit, that was so well delivered. God damn, that was so funny. Like, and that's not an easy thing to do, like with your voice. Like, I'm genuinely impressed by that little scream right there. Like, god damn, I'm gonna have to save a clip of that to that's probably gonna go in the final video. Just it's too perfect.
こちゃん、あの人にはああやって恋人が。
そんなのあの二人に聞いたわけじゃないでしょ。みなこ、この恋燃えさせていただくわ。
お客様、どうかお席の方へ。
Okay, I really liked the way that scene ended. That the little comedic elements that weren't funny on their own, but all came together with the right timing to just kind of. It just got me to laugh, even though there wasn't any specific thing I was laughing at. I really liked that.
しだよ。
うさぎちゃん、もう付き合ってくれなくてもいいわよ。あとは一人でやるから。
やだ。私もあのかっこいい人気になる。
うさぎちゃんには守さんがいるでしょ。
Yeah, and again, the over-the-top
ほら、
visual
もう別れ
gags.
たじゃない。
They seem to be a very
やっぱり恋人
consistent
同士じゃ
thing,
なく
but
ってね。
it's funny. I also do
Kameda-san.
appreciate the gap between almost like their perceived not confidence, but competence. I know English words. But yeah, the gaps in their perceived competence just kind of shift depending on whether they're kind of in their fighting evil magical girl mode or in their regular high schooler mode, because they're kind of, you know, they're portrayed as, you know, again, superheroes basically. My cat just may have fucked up my lamp. I hope she did not. I will check that after the stream, but now this room is dark. So, yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, so yeah, they're superheroes when they're in magical girl mode, but when they're in high school mode, they're kind of ditzy and a little, well, you know, just a little dumb. They do dumb things. I like that.
お
こんにちは。
やあ、また来たのかい。
すいません。
ちょっと待っててくれよ。もうじきこいつも終わるからさ。
はい。
Again, I will say, I know I've mentioned it before, but I actually do really like the shading on this character when they show them from a distance. Like, it looks like a comic book, and I can appreciate that because they're kind of going for that type of feel with this villain, because he's cartoonish in his depictions. Like, it's like every crazy thing they could do with him, they are doing with him, at least visually speaking. We haven't seen a whole lot from him just yet. Like, again, we just kind of saw him being evil and doing evil science things and creating the villains of each episode, which I'm assuming is going to happen now. He's going to make another one of those seeds. And it seems like he breaks a fucking, I can't remember. I think it's a beaker, or I don't remember the word for all the different science receptacles, but he like breaks a beaker every time. You wonder how many he's got on hand. I mean, not that they're ridiculously expensive, but
はい、ここに。
見つかったかね。選ばれしピュアな心を持つ人間を。
はい、もう目星はつけておりますわ。
おう。
I don't know, man. Like, I feel like at some point he would just use like tempered glass or something that's not gonna shatter like that. Because, again, while those aren't like ruinously expensive, the cost of those is gonna add up if you keep doing one of these like every other day. Because, I mean, I'm sure that scientists have some issues with funding in general, but you know, if you keep fucking up your a beaker every time you make your new monster, it's like, I don't know, seems fiscally irresponsible. Also, turn off the Bunsen burner when you're done with it.
よしよし
That's
い
a
い子
fire
だ
hazard.
行け大門の卵よピュアな心を奪ってくるのだ
Yeah, seizure warning, I guess. Okay, so yeah, I know I mentioned it before, but one thing I do actually really like is how the monsters that they're creating do tend to take on attributes of whatever it is they possess, and that leads to some interesting visuals and some interesting combat dynamics every time. And yeah, I do like that. So it looks like this one's going to be part of the car. So I'm curious as to what he'll do with that. Because, it's kind of obviously, with the vine monster, the first one, she became a plant creature, was able to kind of detach her hands to make roots and all that stuff. That made sense. And then the next one was a combination of puzzles and cats. So she looked like a cat, had some cat elements to her, but also shattered like the jigsaw puzzle. I'm curious as to I don't kind of immediately know what would make sense as like a car monster. So I'm curious. And of course, I imagine if they're keeping with the trends, they're going to make it sexy, which, I can't complain about.
ほら早くレイちゃんとこ行かなきゃダメでしょ。
やだやだ、私もあのかっこいい人気になる。
No point in watching the transition, and also it's just another thing that's probably going to get me copyrighted if I keep it up.
子猫ちゃん、いつまで隠れてるつもりだい？
バレてたんですか？にゃんにゃん。
Fucking yows, that's great.
天王遥か、高校1年。知りたかったんだろ？僕のことをさ。
Okay, so he's a year older than them. I wonder if that's relevant.
他に君たちが知りたがっていることといえば。
さっきまで一緒にいた人ははるかさんの何ですか？何ですか？
Okay. Yeah, I like the slightly absurd nature of this comedic scene.
恋人じゃないですよね。
But I also think it's going to be, they're being, high school girls kind of crushing over a guy, and they're playing that up for comedy. But I also feel like because they just showed the villain creating the monster of the week, and that it implanted in presumably that car, it'll be interesting to see how it transitions from this scene to the next. Are they going to go for like a tonal shift kind of thing? So like where the abruptness kind of is what kind of grips the audience, or are they going to have some other kind of transition? I'm curious because they haven't really done a whole lot of crazy like tonal shift stuff yet. There's been a little bit of it, but it's usually been like a serious moment broken up by humor. So yeah, I don't know. I could kind of see it going in a bunch of different directions. Like this show seems very, in many ways, this show is fairly formulaic so far, but it's also doesn't seem to be necessarily rigid about the tropes and the ideas that it wants to use. So it's a very interesting combination of things I'm feeling right now. So I'm not sure how. So I actually don't know what to expect as far as transitioning from this scene to the fight, which this is about the time the fight happened in the previous episodes as well. But again, going from a comedic scene to the next one, it'll be interesting. Also, I'm not actually 100% sure who the victim of this scene is. So far, they've been mostly set up beforehand. There's been a character who's been shown to be, a really kind character. In one case, it was the Shrine Maiden girl because of just how that whole conversation went with Usagi earlier. Then there was the cat girl with, how they showed she cared about the orphan cats. I feel like the only outside characters they set up here were the two new characters who I assume are the two additions to the group that were interfering with the previous two episodes. So yeah, I don't know if they even set up a particular victim this week.
呼び捨てにするような関係なんですか？どうですか？
そうだな。それ以上の関係かな。でも、
Yeah, that's great.
諦めちゃダメだ。君たちにもまだチャンスはあるよ。
ダメよ、
騙されちゃ
みちる。
その人は可愛い子を見るとすぐそういうことを言うんだから。
おい、そりゃないだろう。
あら、いいのかしら、私にそんなこと言って。差し入れ持って帰っちゃおうかな。
おいおい。
質問、あなたははるかさんの恋人なんですか？イエス可能でお答えください。
Okay, and interesting, the
よっしゃー、この
the
国もらったもらった。
okay,
うさぎちゃんにはマモルさんがいるでしょ。
funny. Yeah, again, I feel bad for that guy. He's getting
いつになく追求が厳しい。
he was kind of getting cucked by this other dude.
あ、やだわ、花粉かしら。この時期は注意しないと。
それにしてもうさぎちゃんとみなこちゃんは遅いな。一体二人ともどうしたんだ？二人ともってところが気に
Again,
な
I
る
am
わ
a
ね。
little bit sad that I don't really know what
ど
these
うせ
three characters are
あの
like.
二人のことだから
You
か
know,
っこいい
just,
男の子でも見かけ
I mean, we know a little bit more about her, but again, just the fact that the overall ensemble cast is less than fully established for me personally, I do feel does detract from things just because, again, they're interacting with each other, talking about the other two members of their group. I don't really have the context for how they all engage with one another, so.
って一緒に追いかけてったんじゃないの？まさかいくらなんでも。
あの亀田さんは自分のチューンしたマシンが世界のレースでも通用するようなメカニックマンを目指してる。だからここに来るのは好きだ。こ
Okay,
の
so
場所の
they
先には蜃気楼に揺れるサーキットが
okay, so
うっすら
they're
と見えてく
introducing
る
a
ような
racing
気がす
element,
る。
which actually makes sense given that the fact that the monster of this week possessed the car, and also the fact that they started out the episode with the racing game. So they're kind of tying it all together like that.
はるか
Makes
は
sense.
モータースポーツのトップドライバーになることが将来の夢なのよ。
いや、それは違う。夢じゃなくて夢だったんだ。
夢だった。
じゃあ今の夢は何ですか？
自分にしかできないことをするってことだ。そのためにはどんな犠牲でも払ってみせる。たとえ何を失っても
Okay, so yeah,
後
they're,
悔はしない。
okay. I think I know what that's being referred to just because of
本当
the
にかっこいい。
summary blurb. The fact that
マ
they're
モちゃ
trying
んには
to.
負けるけど。
よしと
I think the idea is that they're trying to
Ma,
collect the
こんなところかな。
talismans to find the Holy Grail to use it for good, as opposed to yeah, whatever.
なんなの？カメラさん。
Okay,
はるか。
okay. So that answered my earlier question of how they were going to transition to this scene, where they didn't go straight from comedic to this scene. They went from comedic to, a bit more of a reserved tone, where that they moved past the humorous elements and started talking more, just not super serious, but like takes on, a more neutral tone. And then they transitioned to the a little wistful as well. It was not just neutral, but wistful as well. Then they transitioned to the intense scene, and again, I do like the red background kind of amplifying what's going on here. Yeah, seizure warning. A lot of flashing lights. Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
ステアリング。
なんだ
That is an
貴様の夢に
interesting
かけるピ
design.
ュアな心をいただく。じゃあ
Huh, okay, that's an interesting application of that power. Okay. And that's very like Looney Tunes. I like that. Okay, so okay, they made the windshield her tits and put the star there. Okay, yeah, why not? Okay, so I guess this mechanic is the pure-hearted person, so. Well, I do actually like they established that it's not
早
always
速こ
going
の
to be a
結
girl.
晶カオリナイト様
I
にタリス
also
マンかどう
feel
か
like
調べていただく。
this guy didn't really have that setup of the other two characters when they were going to be victimized. So, like, I feel like we aren't really connecting with how pure-hearted this character is, when I feel like even like a little bit would have been good, because all we so far got was the pretty guy talking about how he is excited to be a mechanic. So it's not like we actually saw it for ourselves how likable this guy is. So this particular bit of tension, you know, the idea that the guy's at risk of dying, doesn't really land for me.
とするか。
Well, that voice acting, honestly, she's having a lot of fun with it. Okay, and I actually do find it interesting that I've noticed each of the 3 combats we've seen so far in this series have taken on a completely different, not a different tone, but have gone in a different direction. The first one was just kind of the villain overpowers the heroes right up until the interlopers fix things. Then the next one is kind of more of a back and forth where the interlopers do involve themselves but don't finish the job, and then is overcome by the heroes. And this one is just kind of a hit and run by the villain. So that's an interesting way of doing things.
大変早くあの人の心の結晶を取り戻さないと。はるかさん、
あらいなくなっちゃった。
ミラコちゃん、今そんなこと言ってる時じゃないでしょ。
わかってるわよ。
Okay, yeah. Again, I'm not going to complain about the magic control transformation sequences just because I understand that it's like an iconic kind of thing. But I will also acknowledge that again, it doesn't really click for me because it's not my kind of thing. Although, okay, so I will say, so I know that they have the kind of this space theme going on with the sailor squad, I think is what they're called. So yeah, they have that space thing, but I do find it actually interesting that the Venus does have the nod to the mythological influence of the name, where, you know, Venus is the Roman version of Aphrodite, who's the goddess of love and passion. So, you know, she had the the feminine symbol when she transformed. So that's interesting how that actually connected beyond just to the actual mythological origins of that name, and not just the the space element of it. Okay, so yeah, it looks like, you know, pretty much what come to expect so far. Again, I don't really know what to say beyond that, because I mean, I do want to talk during this just so I have a less likely chance of getting slapped with copyright issues, but like, what else can I really say about the transformation sequences that I haven't already said? Like, I feel like, you know, they're going to be the same every time. So that is an interesting visual. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about this character design, because like, as a villain, she seems kind of ridiculous more than anything, but I mean, I don't hate it. At least the visual is interesting. Like, I do understand that if a animation team is going to kind of go out there when it comes to designing villains, you know, they're not necessarily all going to be hit out of the park. But she's wearing a helmet. Fucking hell, that's so silly.
夢を追う男性のピュアな心。
悪い奴には渡さない。愛と正義のセーラー美少女戦士セーラームーン。好きに変わって足焼きよ。
ちょっと人に自転車焦がせておいて自分だけいい格好しないでよ。
Okay, I like the little bits of little bits of meta humor. I can appreciate that.
これ以上私の交通妨害をする者は許さない。
Fucking Mad Max all of a sudden.
お待ちなさい。誰だ。新たな時代に誘われてセーラーウラヌス華麗に活躍。
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it was pretty much all but confirmed earlier, but now it is confirmed that, yeah, these are the two people mentioned in the summary blurb.
心の結晶は渡しませんわ。
And I will say, it is interesting that, again, for a magical girl show, now they actually do have a magical boy.
様たちも私の進路を妨害する気か。
I mean, I guess Tuxedo Mask kind of counts as one, but not in the same sense. He doesn't share the same kind of aesthetics as the rest of the Sailor Squad. I'm also curious as to what makes them so much more powerful. Because they clearly do have more... Okay, and that's actually neat because they have the... Oh, son of a bitch. Sorry about that, but... So I do actually like how they, actually incorporated a lot of the elements that we saw in the previous episodes, like the actual planet going through, and we see what that actually is, because we only just kind of saw a blue orb before.
みちるさんはるかさんは一緒じゃないんですか一緒よ
I feel like
結局はるかさんとは
Okay, so I think...
違うわ
Okay, that's weird. I did not mean to skip over all that, but... Yeah, let's go.
貴様たちも私
新たな時代に誘われて
Okay,
セー
there
ラ
we
ー
go.
ウラヌス華麗に活躍同じく新たな時代に誘われて
I do find it interesting that the guy is in
我訳あってタリスマンを探している
is in like the female, like the magical girl costume.
謎の選手
So
セーラー選手だったの
okay.
貴様たちも私の進路を妨害する気
And
か
I mean, and again, this is definitely something that would have been explained in previous seasons that I missed, but I don't really know what it means to be a sailor soldier. So I'm not going to blame the show for it, but again, that is another element of things I'm missing due to my lack of context. Okay. I will say that looks pretty cool. Just the fucking voice acting is ridiculous.
セーラームーンわかった
Okay, I like how the music is kind of working in sync with the animation there. Okay, and then, of course, while she's doing the big attack, it's gonna have the theme music playing. Again, I understand that's just kind of a staple of the genre, which honestly may have even started with Sailor Moon. I don't really know the history of magical girl stuff. Oh, that sounds like the fucking music from Legend of Zelda when you collect an item. Okay, so I actually do kind of like how she turns right back into the car, which is kind of amusing, but I will say this particular villain didn't seem to have as much of the threat. Didn't seem to be as much of a threat as the others.
持ち主に返してやってくれ
Like, it didn't feel like they were gonna actually in any kind of real danger from that. Just because there was no real establishment of that
結
villain's
局はる
power.
かさんとはそれっきりになっちゃった
All
の
they did was kind of run away a little bit and
や
didn't
っぱ
actually
り
put
か
up a
っこ
real
いい
fight.
男の人を追いかけて勉強会をサボったってわけねみんな今はそんなことより新たに現れたセーラー戦士のことを調べないとそのことなら今ルナとアルテミスが調べてるから大丈夫よ
そっかそれで二人とも姿を見かけないのか
Yeah, again, the cats are definitely something that was also explained in a previous parts of the show,
一緒じゃない
but
んですか
一緒よ
どこかっこいい人はどこどこ先輩に似てるって人はどこだどこ
okay, yeah. Again, the visual gags are just consistently good. Oh, wait, so... Okay, so the person's actually a girl. Okay. That's interesting.
女の人だよね
Actually, okay, that makes things... make a lot
僕
more
が
sense.
男だって言った覚えはないけど
こんなことしている場合じゃないのに私は最初からマモちゃんの方がいいって思ってたもんね
Okay. Alright, so it looks like we're just about at the end, probably. Yeah, this... Okay, yeah, so... Yeah, this is going to be another interesting one for me personally when I'm working on the final video. Because, again, like the way the list ended up working out was that it put me on Sailor Moon S without ever having seen Sailor Moon. So I am missing a lot of context for what this show is actually doing. Like, I don't really know anything about the characters. I don't know anything about the overarching plot. Like I don't know what what's the deal with the cats. I don't know what the being a sailor soldier even is. Like it doesn't seem to be a consistent organization. Like it seems to have something beyond that, because otherwise how would they have sailor soldiers they don't know about? I don't know what they've been through already. I don't know what growth they've experienced just yet, but I will say there's a lot of stuff it's doing that I found very impressive. I think it's putting down a lot of things that I'm just not capable of picking up due to the fact that I'm starting the show at a point where you were not meant to start the show. So, again, that's not a fault of the show. It's more of a fault of the list that the Anime Men came up with, which, again, I do think is probably ChatGPT, but I can't say for sure. So yeah, overall, this is probably going to be another one where I most likely am not going to give it a final ranking. I will still review it. I'll still talk about the things I liked and didn't like and what I was experiencing throughout the show. So it's not like I'm not going to review it, but I think this one, it wouldn't be fair for me to actually give it a letter rank like I am the other anime. So this will be joining Otogi Manga Calendar in the unranked tier, if that makes sense. It's not a tier of itself, it's just not ranked. So yeah. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. So that is 1994 Sailor Moon S. Tomorrow's a Wednesday, so there's going to be no stream tomorrow. However, we will be back on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, with a big one, actually, something that I know has been pretty highly anticipated, which is Neon Genesis Evangelion, which that'll also be one of the few that I think that'll be actually the first on the list where I will have actually seen the episodes that we're going to watch ahead of time, because I never finished NGE, but I did watch like about half of it at one point. So yeah, this will be interesting to see how it feels on a second watch, even though I didn't actually finish the series. So yeah, that'll be fun. I will also say, I will just repeat what I said on yesterday, is that this Saturday I'm not going to be streaming. Also, unfortunately, next weekend I'm also not going to be streaming because I just got a thing this weekend and I've got a wedding next weekend, so that takes priority. I may actually end up doing some of the viewing on my own time, just because, again, the fact that I'm missing 3 Saturdays in a row is not something I like to do. And so it's probably going to result in, it's putting me 9 episodes behind the pace that I thought I was going to be at. So that's like significant. So I might do some watching on my own. I'm not sure yet, but yeah. Thank you guys, everyone, for showing up. And anyone who watched the VOD, I do apologize. I suspect this one's probably going to get chopped up to hell, but I appreciate you guys too. Yeah, hopefully I will see you guys on Thursday. If not, I will see you guys whenever. Thanks for stopping.